Hi, everybody. How are you doing? It is Marcelo, the Family Beset, PrivateLawTrusts.org. I have some very exciting news for you and a very exciting show that we're about to do. This is just an introduction. You are about to meet Spirit Warrior. His colonial or legal name is Glenn Bogue, and he's been a lawyer for many, many years. And he is going to confirm all of the work that we are doing. So we're going to talk about sovereignty. We're going to talk about private law societies. We're going to talk about people's rights. We're going to talk about legal courts. We're going to talk about the government being a corporation. And this gentleman, who's a lawyer in Canada, and has been a lawyer, he now is working with the Alliance of Indigenous Nations. That's how I met him. And I do work with them as well. And he's going to be setting up his own society. We're going to be going through that process, and he's about to confirm basically everything that we say. So to anyone who's doubted us in the past, if you're somebody looking at our information wondering if it's legitimate, if it works, here's the proof. This is the video you want. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Glenn Bogue, Spirit Warrior, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation, and this is going to blow your mind. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a moment. Right on.
So, Madam Justice, so there was a $44 million jury judgment against these two, bloody Mohawks not paying their taxes. What the hell's wrong with these people? And she goes into a constitutional question. Jury's convicted them. $44 million is going out the window here. And she stays the order of the jury based on the fact that Indigenous rights for their trade and commerce are protected under Section 35 of the alleged Constitution of Canada. A peaceful protesters and trucker convoy.
Yeah.
Trudeau said that I have the right to do that. Before he did it, he said, I have the right to do this under the Charter of Rights. Now watch that word charter. The charter goes from 1 to 34, and 1 and 33 are the overriding clauses that Trudeau can use to ride over Marcel's rights to be vaccinated or not be vaccinated. But they cannot override your rights under Section 35, which was put in 1981 by Pierre Trudeau after the Indigenous went to the House of Lords, the High Court of England, and said, we have treaties with England. We ain't got no treaties with Canada Corporation.
You brought up the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So my understanding is a charter is the birth of a corporation or a corporate document, basically, of a corporate entity. Is that correct?
Do you have mental problems? You can't say that on public television. What the hell's wrong with this guy? He's actually stating what's right in everybody's face, a charter, that you charter a boat, but a charter is what, that's correct. And it's called letters patent of a charter.
Beautiful.
Now, the letters patent were proclaimed by Queen Elizabeth in April of 1982. But the proclamation states that she's announcing letters patent of a corporation. It's not there, but the letters patent are there. Over whom? Over her British loyal subjects. Now, the same term is used in the Quebec Act of 1774. Now, she comes from Guyana, and I asked her, are you Indigenous? And then the Canadian thinking, well, I'm not born again. I'm not an Indian. Shut up. You're born in Guyana on Turtle Island, right? At 2 years old, she moved here. But when her parents came from India to Pearson Airport when she was 2, there was only one door. And that was the door under the Crown of Washington. And you were going to make a contract to pay taxes. You're going to work 3 jobs because nobody told you the debt that the country's really in. And so you've signed that contract. Where was the second door? Okay, where I can be adopted by the clan mother in council. That, Indigenous, under Article 18 of UNDRIP, you are entitled to go into court with an Indigenous representative of choice, as opposed to a lawyer. And some judges are recognizing that. Thank God, thank the goddess, and some are not. Be cognizant when you say Indigenous individual rights, because that's what UNDRIP Article 1, they're both collective and individual. Article 3, you have the unfettered right to self-declare who you are. Done it for 7 years. They laugh at me at the Law Society. Oh, Bogue. He says he's a, shut up. It's an UNDRIP, okay? Article 3, Marcel can self-declare to be a cat, a gay, trans, a Martian, anything he wants, because he has unlimited capacity.
You
Right?
bet.
One
You
great
bet.
idea from Marcel is goes into his bank account, his vault at Tumult, and then the value goes into the pool below that for the well-being of all human beings over the planet. So the Treaty of the Eagle and Condor is that 160 nations now have signed it around the world as an alternate UN. The UN said in 1970 that non-UN member states have sovereign equality with Canada, with the US. Well, who are these non-UN member states, Marcel? Guam? No, they're particularly the United States. Puerto Rico? No, they're owned by the United States. Who are these? It's the 4 or 5 billion indigenous individuals who the banks cannot reach. Before you go away from there, the individual, Google Attorney General Nova Scotia, AGNS, AGC, 1951. It's the first decision of our Supreme Court when it became the highest court in the country, and we couldn't go back to England anymore, 1951. And they said in there that the governments are sovereign within their context, but neither of them has the unlimited capacity of the individual. Now, if you're a sovereign nation, you print your own currency backed by the gold reserves of Canada, who is the richest country in the world in resources. If Putin has 70 trillion and he's doing the war there in Ukraine and he's doing a lot of exporting of oil and doing a good trade around the world, he's got 70 trillion. Canada has, and write this down, everybody, or stamp it in your kid's forehead, 700 trillion. We have 10 times Russia's amount. And Warren Buffett said, hey, stupid, don't dig it out of the ground. I got to hire Brinks trucks. I got to go after them in the court when they steal their crap. Right? Just leave it in the ground and monetize it. And that's what we've done. We'll get into that in a little bit later. Sir.
Yeah.
We're worth $700 trillion. We're each worth $20 million.
Yeah.
And we have bumped people homeless in the streets. Your wealth is in the resources and is augmented by Marcel's spending power with 20 million in there that doesn't ever go away because he's adding to it. As long as he's not sitting on his duff eating, Twinkies, he's working. The whole country is increasing its wealth by its labor. And unlimited based on a new financial system that you're all worth $20 million. And we'll get to how that works. That's unlimited. In our new financial system, if Marcel makes those socks for $1,000, okay, that's a credit. And I had to work hard to get the $1,000 to buy those socks. It's a credit. There's no debits on this wonderful planet of abundance. That's all BS. Coming out of downtown London, England's morally corrupt. Watch this under Tumult. If you pay the $3, okay, it's a credit. It's not you don't use a debit card. You're using your vault card. Now it's up and running, but it has to kind of wait for the world to explode in World War III. It's up and running. Right, they need World War because the banks are broke. They owe us too much money. So they've got to murder the creditors by war or by injection. Or by disease and pestilence. And so some way they've got to destroy the 90% of the creditors or their lifestyles over. They'll have to become equal. They'll have to become equal.
You bet. Heaven forbid.
The case is called Vukovic versus RBC. Vukovic, 1998, paragraph 19. Long held, Court of Appeal of Ontario. When you put the $100 in, who's the creditor? Marcel is the creditor because only one thing creates wealth on this planet, and that's Marcel's labor. He makes socks, right? He makes teeth. He's combing hair for a living. Whatever he's doing, he makes this unit, $100. He puts it in, and the debtor, it's right there, highest court of Ontario. The debtor is the bank.
Because they owe that funding. Makes sense.
They owe that. They can't. They're not doing anything to make any wealth because they're just printing it up on the computer. What would happen to the crime rate, Marcel, if people know they got a nest egg of 20 million? Okay, because that's a human living standard. right? That lets you do whatever Marcel can think of in that great brain of his.
Oh, you bet.
He has the power to go do it. And I want a gorgeous Canadian shield to back me and my family, no matter how many times I screw up. I still love myself.
Yeah.
And I'm safe. I'm safe. Imagine being safe. Imagine how many people in this country are worried about what they're going to pay the mortgage tomorrow. How about so now let's go with a real financial system called TUMO. So now our next step is to get our laws preserved, honored, enforced.
You bet. And just along the lines of what you're talking about, because you brought up the 20 million in that. My understanding, and maybe the numbers aren't exact, but just in what my understanding is that the birth certificate bond and the value that has, I've heard 8 million, you're saying 20 million, but whatever that dollar amount is.
No. Slow down. This is very important. The 20 million is based on you being born here. Your birthright is to own the resources equally. Every man, woman, child. Norway did this.
Yeah.
Norway did this. Look at Google the Norway Sovereign Fund 1990. Today worth 1.3 trillion. It's a big player on the stock market of Europe, and it's owned by the people. Every man, woman, and child, just on the oil tax of Exxon in Norway, are all worth $200,000. In this bank, no, in this financial institution. Marcel takes his glasses, they're made of gold, and he puts them in there in a safety deposit box in the steel vault where they keep it as a custodian. That's a bank.
Yeah.
But a financial institution prints up the 400. In comes the 3 or 4 people in the audience here in the studio there. They want a loan of 400. And of course, they've got lots more computer units to lend. And they're typing up 400,000, 400,000, 400,000, right? So the balloon becomes, in 2022, 2.5 thousand trillion. It's called a quadrillion.
You bet.
As owed by the central bank in Switzerland to all the depositors globally. Last year, they called that frivolous. I said, we need a neutral arbiter here.
Absolutely.
Because I'm going after the monopoly, right? It's the only monopoly in the country. It was doctors. So I'm going to court to put an order in against the CIBC on Wednesday for $40 million. I have to go to court. I gotta find something, more than Glenn Bogue saying the Eagle and Condor prophecy with William Commanda. So I Google Eagle and Condor, and what comes up? The University of Toronto Varsity Blues sports team. What?
Right.
The single best website I ever saw on the Eagle and Condor prophecy, created by a bunch of jocks at the U of T. Now, what's the judge going to say that's graduated from U of T? What's he going to say? BS? I didn't put the website up. Google it. University of Toronto Blues, Eagle and Condor. Learn about it. Then we have this, our tribunal, recognized under international law and under UNDRIP.
You bet.
Right? It's fully lawful under international law, and it's now you can go there for $100. The judges meet every Monday at 3:00 routinely, without fail, and the orders go out fast, and you get justice fast, and you run to the court for monetary damages, and now injunctions on cases over in a month. There's 2 weeks that they have to answer the other side. There's one, maybe one appeal, depends on the subject matter, for 15 days. It's over. I'm in court now, 7 years, trying to get my contract for $3 million signed by my client and his lawyer, signed the debt, and I'm 7 years now trying to collect on that 2-page contract. So no, thank you. Win or lose, I want to know it's over in a month. I can move on. And I don't have a bill. No lawyers are allowed in the AIN tribunal. It's $100, and let's go. So now our next step is to get our laws preserved, honored, enforced in Section 35. What are they going to say? Ottawa's going to tell us what our judges can say? They're going to overrule our judges when we're supposed to be equal? No, they have to enforce. It's called international comity. If a bank,
and that's where anybody through reclaiming rights as an Indigenous man or woman on planet Earth through their society and their private law society, if they're violated by legal code, I see this now as a way that they can file a complaint with AIN, have a judgment issued that then can be entered into the legal codification of things or legality or corporate entities and have them
actually called comity, COMITY. By comity, they have to enforce the judgment from Germany or Japan. Has to be
in contract law and in private law and unregistered unincorporated rights. No one can take or give rights. They can only be exercised or not by the individual. So that's where you're operating under your own authority. But as soon as you enter contract, especially with the legal system, you're stepping over into privilege. That's why driving is a privilege and licenses are a privilege. So by
law license a privilege.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. I work pretty damn hard for a privilege.
Right?
I have
exactly.
Absolutely. I have a right to be your lawyer as under Article 18 now, Indigenous counselor, we call them.
Yes. And that's where I'm coming full. That's where I'm coming full circle now. So within that, with the charter and legality being privilege, Indigenous law and rights that are unregistered, unincorporated are where rights exist. And if men and women are born on planet Earth, guess what? They're Indigenous to planet Earth. So that's what kind of brings our conversation from it just applying, instead of it just applying to First Nations or maybe a tribe in the Amazon that's throwing spears. Everyone needs to understand that all of our birthrights are our Indigenous rights, are our God-given rights, unalienable rights. And that's where that whole sphere of privilege, that's why unregistered, unincorporated, sovereign rights held by Indigenous power is where actual self-governance comes from. And that's where you escape all of the privilege and permission required to leave a 15-minute city or to have to get a vaccination or to abide by mandates or anything that act and statute or the legal system can mandate. You are now exempt and it does not apply to you so long as you're not causing harm, whatever your background happens to be. And
that's Indigenous common law. Professor Richard Werner, Werner, get his great lectures out of Oxford University, no dummy. And so he is the one who lays all this out brilliantly. The $100 is only a security. And now Chase Bank has a lien on even that. So if Marcel's a great year and he makes 200,000, Chase Bank's got a lien on it. It ain't yours, Marcel. You're in secondary position.
You bet. That's how come I have a private law society and all my funds go through my society.
I know. I just was going to turn it into an advertisement. I see now coming over the horizon here with the sun in my eyes. This is where the private trust goes to get the security out of Chase Bank's premier position and get it into a private trust protected by, hopefully, because we're not there yet, remember, protected by Indigenous common law and not the Constitution.
Exactly. You bet. And that's where Constitution, Charter, all of that are corporate. So that's where the private society or private law trust, because it's unregistered and unincorporated, that's where there's no joinder and it's separate and exempt from anything that a corporate entity has to do. Now it can't cause harm. So there's still law, no harm to life, liberty, property, or rights, no fraud in contract. So it's not like you can found a society and decide to go shoot Trudeau. You would still get in trouble. You can't do that. But within that, it's a lawful defense. Adverse possession is enjoyment of real property under claim of right. And we have over 15 years been able to get the legal system to recognize basically anything a government or a business can do, we're able to do as a program under an unregistered, unincorporated society, as long as we don't hurt anybody and use peaceful process and provide proper notice to anyone who would be affected, basically.